The untold story of AI's most shocking failures. When algorithms go wrong. YouTube script, 8 to 12 minutes, documentary style. True crime pacing. In 2015, Amazon built an AI system to hire engineers. Sounds good, right? Smart technology, faster hiring, less bias. But here's the problem. After just 4 months, they had to shut it down completely. The algorithm had become systematically sexist. It was rejecting qualified women at unprecedented rates. This isn't a sci-fi movie. This is what really happens when algorithms go wrong. And Amazon isn't alone. From hospitals misdiagnosing patients to self-driving cars making fatal decisions, AI failures are happening everywhere. And the scary part? We're trusting these systems with our lives, our careers, our futures, without understanding what they're actually doing. Today, we're exposing the shocking stories of AI's biggest failures. Real cases, real consequences, real questions about whether we're moving too fast. Let's start with Amazon's hiring scandal. This is a perfect case study of how good intentions plus historical data equals disaster. Amazon wanted to automate recruiting. The engineering team fed the algorithm 10 years of hiring data. Every resume they'd accepted, every candidate they'd hired, every decision the company had made. In theory, the AI would learn what made a good engineer and identify future talent faster. But there was a massive problem. Amazon's hiring data was male-dominated. The company had historically hired more men. When the algorithm learned from this biased data, it didn't learn what makes a good engineer. It learned that men were engineers. The algorithm started down-ranking applications from women. If your resume mentioned Women's Chess Club, you were penalized. If you were a woman who graduated from all women's colleges, downranked. The system was essentially teaching itself that women didn't belong in engineering, based purely on patterns in the company's own discriminatory hiring history. Amazon spent 4 months building this. It took just a few weeks to realize their AI had become a diversity nightmare. They shut it down completely. The lesson here is brutal. Algorithms don't create bias from nothing. They amplify bias that's already embedded in the data they're trained on. They take your historical mistakes and automatize them at scale. Now let's talk about something even more frightening: medicine. In 2019, researchers discovered a major algorithm being used across hundreds of hospitals in the United States. This AI system was being trusted to identify which patients were sickest, who needed intensive care, and how to allocate limited hospital resources. On paper, it was working perfectly. The algorithm appeared to be accurate. But when researchers dug deeper, they found something terrifying. The algorithm had learned to discriminate based on race. Here's why. The hospitals had been using medical costs as a proxy for health severity. The logic seemed sound. Sicker patients cost more money to treat, right? So if we feed the algorithm cost data, it should predict who's sickest. But there's a structural problem in America's healthcare system. Black patients and patients of color receive less medical spending than white patients for the same diagnoses. It's a documented reality of healthcare inequality. When the algorithm learned from cost data, it didn't learn health. It learned racism. It systematized the very inequalities that were built into the data. This meant black patients were consistently rated as less sick than white patients with identical medical conditions. They were triaged lower. They were less likely to be admitted to intensive care units. They received fewer interventions. The algorithm wasn't trying to be racist. The data was racist. And the algorithm just made it faster, more objective, and harder to question. So we've seen AI fail in hiring and healthcare. But what about self-driving cars? This is where things get philosophical and terrifying at the same time. In March 2018, an autonomous vehicle operated by Uber struck and killed Elaine Herzberg, a 49-year-old woman in Tempe, Arizona. She was crossing the street with her bicycle when the car hit her. She didn't survive. Investigators found that the car's system had detected her, but it classified her as an unlabeled object. Not a human, not a pedestrian, just an object that might disappear. The vehicle's decisions were made in milliseconds. It didn't brake. It didn't swerve. By the time the human safety driver realized what was happening, it was already too late. This raises one of the deepest questions about AI. Who's responsible when an algorithm kills someone? Is it the programmer, the company, the owner? The algorithm itself? The truth is messier. Self-driving cars are trained on edge cases, unusual scenarios. Detecting pedestrians in urban environments is actually one of the harder problems in computer vision. Sometimes the system sees something it's never been trained on, and it makes a guess. And sometimes that guess is fatal. Now, let's talk about something that's affecting millions of people right now: ChatGPT hallucinations. In late 2023, a lawyer used ChatGPT to research case law. The AI confidently cited 6 judicial decisions. There was just one problem: none of them existed. The AI had completely invented fake cases with real-sounding citations. The lawyer, not realizing they were fake, submitted them to the court. The judge was not pleased. This has become routine. ChatGPT and other large language models are trained to predict the next word based on patterns in massive amounts of text data. They get very good at sounding confident. But they have no real understanding. They don't verify. They don't check sources. They just continue the pattern. A doctor asks ChatGPT for rare disease symptoms. The AI provides something that sounds completely plausible. A student asks for historical facts. The AI invents quotes from presidents who never said them. A journalist asks for statistics, and the AI generates numbers that feel right but are completely made up. The scariest part? Users often believe these hallucinations because the AI presents them with absolute confidence. There's no uncertainty. No, I'm not sure. No hedging. Just pure conviction in completely false information. We're at a point where everyone has access to a technology that lies with confidence, and most people don't know how to evaluate whether what it says is real. So we've seen 5 major categories of AI failure: bias in hiring, medical discrimination, autonomous vehicle accidents, hallucinated information, and more. But here's what connects all of them. AI systems don't understand anything. They're pattern matching engines. They find correlations in data and exploit them. When the data contains human biases, the AI amplifies them at scale. When the training data is incomplete, the AI makes confident guesses that are often wrong. We're deploying these systems faster than we're understanding them. We're trusting them with decisions that require nuance, context, and human judgment. And then we're surprised when they fail. The engineers building these systems are often brilliant. But they're working with limited data, impossible deadlines, and enormous incentives to ship products quickly. They're not malicious. They're just constrained by the same business pressures every company faces. The problem is structural. Until we fundamentally change how we approach AI development, with more transparency, more regulation, more diversity in who builds these systems, and more humility about what they can actually do, these failures aren't going to stop. They're going to accelerate. The story of AI's failures is still being written. Some of these problems have solutions. Others require fundamental changes to how we build, deploy, and regulate these technologies. But here's what you can do right now. Be skeptical. When an AI-powered service makes a decision about you, whether it's a job application, a medical diagnosis, or something you read online, remember that something fallible made that decision. Ask questions. Demand transparency. Push back on automation when human judgment matters. Because the future of AI isn't determined by the technologists in Silicon Valley. It's determined by millions of people like you who decide what you're willing to accept. If you want to understand the deeper story of how AI is reshaping our world, the good and the bad, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell. We're diving deeper into these issues every week. The algorithms are watching. Let's make sure we're watching back. End of script. Target audience engagement. High combines documentary pacing with tech-forward storytelling, real cases, and a call to systemic awareness.